Say out loud, in one sentence, what you think actually happens when this works. Not what you're supposed to say. The mechanism. You imagine the thing. And then what? Most people can't finish it. I couldn't. For years. Here's the answer. It was printed in 1908, decades before Neville Goddard wrote his clearest books. There is nothing on the other end. No sender, no receiver, nobody deciding. Neville never quoted the Kybalion. I've looked, and I can't find one place where he names it. But the thing his whole method depends on, and never explains, is sitting in chapter 7 of that book, and it explains something he could only ever assert. You've been doing something correctly, while holding a picture of it that's wrong. And it's the picture that breaks it. Always at the same moment, and I'll show you which one. Before the book, one check. It takes about 90 seconds. And it only works on the answer you already have, not on a better one you build while I'm talking. Finish the sentence. When this works, when somebody imagines a thing and later has it, what happened in between? Almost everyone lands on one of four. A sender. You put it out. Into the universe, into the field, into the ether, into the quantum something. The word you use doesn't matter. What matters is that it left you and something out there received it. A judge. It works if you believe enough, if you're aligned enough, if you've cleared enough, if you're worthy. Something is deciding whether this one goes through, and the deciding is happening somewhere you can't see. A machine. No personality, no opinion. The subconscious accepts the impression, and then reality reorganizes around it on its own timetable by means you're told not to think about. A system running somewhere else, processing what you fed it. Or a blank. You don't know. It just works. You've never needed the sentence because nobody's ever asked you for it. Find yours. That's the whole exercise, just which of the four. Now here's what makes it worth having done. There is no fifth answer on that list, and all four have the same thing inside them, something that isn't you, on the other end, doing the part that actually matters. 3 of you built that something, the 4th left the space empty, and an empty space doesn't stay empty. The day nothing happens, the default walks in and fills it, and the default is always a judge. That is the second party. Hold on to which one you found, because you'll need it at the end. 2 seconds, and it's honest about itself. Subscribing is the only thing in this video that genuinely has a second party in it. Me. Everything after this point has none, and that's the entire subject. So do the one that does, now, and then we'll go. 2 things I'm not going to do. And I'd rather say them at 4 minutes than have you bracing for them at 14. I'm not going to tell you that everything that has ever happened to you was your creation. If the universe is mental, somebody always shows up within about 10 minutes to say that your illness was your belief, that the accident was your vibration, that the thing done to you was somewhere in your consciousness first. That is where this material turns cruel. It is the reason serious people won't touch it, and the book I'm going to read from does not require it. Nothing in the next 15 minutes depends on you accepting the worst thing that ever happened to you as your own authorship. If you've been carrying that because somebody handed it to you in a video like this one, put it down. That's about your past, and I'm closing it now. There's a version of the same problem pointing forwards, and I'll deal with that one at the end, where it belongs. And I'm not going to end this with a story about money arriving. No check, no phone call, no parking space. Not because those stories are always false, because a demonstration is not a mechanism, and you already have 100 demonstrations and no mechanism. That's precisely why you're here. So the claim is narrow. There is one sentence, printed in 1908, that explains why the method works. And once you have it, a specific expensive habit of yours stops making sense and falls off. That's it. That's the video. In 1908 in Chicago, the Yogi Publication Society printed a small book called The Kybalion, credited to 3 anonymous authors calling themselves the 3 Initiates. Almost everyone now agrees at least one of them was William Walker Atkinson, who was writing under about 6 names at the time. Whether the book faithfully represents an older Hermetic tradition or is a very good Edwardian synthesis is genuinely disputed, and I'm not going to settle it here. It opens with 7 principles, and the first one is the one everyone can quote. The all is mind. The universe is mental. If you've seen the video on this channel about your environment, you've heard that line from me before. That video used it to talk about what reaches you. This one uses it for something else entirely, and by the end you'll see they were the same law, read in 2 directions. Now, the book tells you what the principle is, and then it does something maddening. It says the art of applying it is called mental transmutation, which it defines as the art of changing and transforming mental states, forms, and conditions into others. It says masters exist who can do it. It says they seek seclusion and don't demonstrate. And then it moves on. I want to be blunt about that because it's the flaw in the book, and it's why the book alone never changed anybody's life. It hands you a law and withholds the instruction. 3 anonymous authors in 1908 telling you that adepts exist somewhere and won't be showing you anything is not a method. It's an advertisement. The instruction shows up 36 years later in the plainest English anybody has ever used on this subject. Neville Goddard, 1944, a thin book called Feeling is the Secret. First chapter, first paragraph. The world and all within it is man's conditioned consciousness objectified. Consciousness is the cause as well as the substance of the entire world. And a few lines down, consciousness is the one and only reality, not figuratively, but actually. Not figuratively, but actually. That's the same claim as the all is mind, made by a man who then spends the rest of the book telling you exactly what to do on a Tuesday night. And while we're here, the thumbnail on this video says 45 years. Let me show you my working, because you'd find it anyway. The Kybalion is 1908. Feeling is the Secret is 1944, which is 36. The Power of Awareness is 1952, which is 44. Awakened Imagination is 1954, which is 46. So the honest answer is somewhere between 36 and 46 years, depending on which Neville you mean, and 45 is me rounding to the middle of his best decade. I'd rather hand you that than have it be the thing you noticed on your own. Now, the sentence this video exists for, it isn't in the famous first principle. It's in chapter 7, which almost nobody quotes, and it's the answer to the question I asked you in the first 10 seconds. While all is in the all, it is equally true that the all is in all. To him who truly understands this truth hath come great knowledge. That's the kind of line that slides straight off the brain. So let me do what the book actually does next, because the book explains itself better than its own slogan. The word it uses is immanent, and it stops to define it in brackets on the page. Remaining within, inherent, abiding within. And then it gives you the illustration, and this is where 1908 becomes useful. It says, think of an author making a character. Othello, Iago, Hamlet, Lear. They existed in the mind of Shakespeare. And yet, the book's words, Shakespeare also existed within each of these characters, giving them their vitality, spirit, and action. Same for Dickens, Micawber, Oliver Twist, Uriah Heep. And then the sentence that pays for this whole video, the entire virtue, life, spirit of reality in the mental image is derived from the immanent mind of the thinker. Read that again with your own imagining in mind, because it's about you. The scene you make is not a message. It is not an object you produced and released. It has no life of its own with which to go anywhere. Every bit of reality it has is on loan from you, and it is on loan only while you are inside it. The image is not something you send. It's somewhere you are. So test that now before I go any further, because the explaining isn't the thing, and I'd rather you had the thing first. 20 seconds. One ordinary moment from after it's already yours. Don't build it well. Just be in it. If you saw the video on this channel about how often, that's the same 20 seconds, and I'm not changing it. What's different is what you're watching for. Watch for one thing only, whether any part of you is presenting it to somebody. Whatever you noticed, including I was performing it a bit, is the finding, and it's the first of 2 times I'll ask you to go in. Almost everybody catches a small audience in the room the first time they look for one, which means there is no other end, not a hostile one, not a benevolent one, not a mechanical one. Not because the universe is empty, but because the position you assign to it doesn't exist in this model. Nothing receives it because it was never sent. Nothing judges it because there is no submission. Nothing processes it on a timetable because the state and its expression are not 2 events. And I owe the third answer a proper hearing here because it's the one I'd have given, and because Neville himself will look like he's on its side. He does write about a subconscious that accepts an impression and then works out the ways of its expression. If that's the machine, he built it. But read where he puts it. He calls the conscious and the subconscious two divisions of one stream, one thing in two aspects, neither of which is anywhere else. That's not a system you submit to. That's the difference between your left hand and your right. So the error in the third answer was never believing in a subconscious. It's giving it an address. The moment it's over there, its own department, its own timetable, working on your file, you've built a recipient out of a part of yourself, and you'll wait on it exactly the way you'd wait on a stranger. It is the subtlest of the four, and it's the one that survives longest, because it sounds like mechanism instead of magic. That's the second party. And it's not a belief you hold. It's a shape you've been putting the whole practice into, which is much harder to notice and much more expensive. Now here's Neville saying the same thing in 1944, without the philosophy. In a paragraph, most people skim on their way to the technique. No matter what the problem is, no matter where it is, no matter whom it concerns, you have no one to change but yourself. And you have neither opponent nor helper in bringing about the change within yourself. Neither opponent nor helper. And in the chapter on prayer, plainer still, all you can possibly need or desire is already yours. You need no helper to give it to you. It is yours now. He wrote that 36 years after a book he never mentions said the mechanism that makes it true. He was right, and he was right early. And the reason he could never quite explain why is that he was working from the practice down. The Kybalion was working from the top down and never came far enough to touch a Tuesday. Each one has exactly the half the other is missing. Now let me take the villain out of this, because there isn't one. And the way this usually gets taught makes you the idiot. You did not invent the second party. You inherited it, and you inherited it from an accurate reading of your entire life. Think about every single thing you have ever wanted and eventually got. A place at a school, a job, a loan, a yes from somebody, a grade, a license, a visa, a discount, a second date. Every one of them came through somebody who was not you and who had to be persuaded. That is not a superstition. That's a lifetime of correctly observed evidence about how getting things works. So when you sat down to do something private with your eyes closed, you did the only thing a competent adult could do. You imported the model that has never once failed to describe your life, and you started asking. You got the tone right. You were sincere. You were grateful in advance. You made your case well. You weren't being naive. You were being experienced. And the book, at this exact point, is unkind. And I'm not going to read it as though it isn't. It mocks the people who get this wrong. It talks about the half-wise who fill the air with their raucous cries of, "I am God." That's sneering. And the people it's sneering at were mostly people who had just had a very large idea and no one to check it with. But underneath the sneer is the most useful guardrail in the book, and I want it kept. It's this. Micawber is both Micawber and yet Dickens. And again, while Micawber may be said to be Dickens, yet Dickens is not identical with Micawber. Both directions. You are not addressing a stranger, and you are also not the whole of it. There is a video on this channel asking whether God is watching you or being you, and this line is the correction I'd add to it now. Immanent, not identical. In it, not equal to it. That distinction is not theology. It's the difference between a practice you can do on a bad Wednesday and a claim that collapses the first time something goes wrong that you didn't order. And here's the moment I actually want you to recognize, because you'll know it instantly. It's the thanking. Somewhere in the last year you finished an imagining and said thank you. Not to yourself. There was a direction in it. Or it's the small negotiation. Just let this one work and I'll never ask again. Or it's the checking. The phone, the inbox, the messages, 4 times an hour. That was never information gathering. You were listening for a reply. Every one of those is the second party, and none of them are stupid. They're courtesy, and they're hope, and they're what a decent person does when they think somebody is on the line. They're just aimed at a position that, in this model, is empty. So here's the method. 3 rules, and it has a name. The author. This is the part to write down. 1. Drop the recipient. Go through the sentences you actually use, out loud, in your head, in your notes app, and find the ones with a direction in them. Putting it out there, sending it, giving it to the universe, asking, trusting that it'll come. Every one of those has a 2 hiding inside it. Rewrite them without one. I'm in. It has no recipient. I'm sending it out. Has one. 2. Refuse the reply. This is the rule that costs something, and it's the one that will actually change your week. No signs, no confirmations, no number on a clock, no bird, no song on the radio. No, the universe is showing me it's working. A sign is a message, and a message requires a sender. So every sign you accept quietly reinstalls the thing you just removed, and it does it about 6 hours after you removed it. The mechanism has no announcements in it. There is nothing that would speak. Do the second one now. 20 seconds, same scene, and this time with the rule switched on. Go in, then come out, and don't look for anything. No checking, no reading the room, no seeing whether the day feels different. In, out, and straight on with your afternoon. That second half, coming out and not looking, is the part nobody has ever asked you to do. And it is the entire rule. Going in was never the hard bit. 3. Stay author-sized. Dickens is not Micawber. You are immanent in this, and you are not identical with all of it. And holding both is what keeps this sane. It means when it works, you don't get to be a god about it. And, much more importantly, when it doesn't, you didn't fail as a god. You left a room. That's a much smaller and much more repairable thing to have done. That's it. Drop the recipient. Refuse the reply. Stay author-sized. 3 limits, and none of them are optional. First, there is a version of my mind is causing what happens that is not this. If you believe your thoughts are causing harm to specific people, if you're checking or repeating things to stop something bad happening, if the responsibility has gone total and you can't put it down, that is a described pattern. Doctors see it regularly, and it does not get worked out from a book from 1908 or from a man on the internet. Please talk to a doctor and tell one real person in your life. I'm not saying that to protect myself. The two things look genuinely similar from the outside, and they are not the same thing. And this material aimed at that will make it worse. Second, and this is the one I said I'd come back to. At the start, I closed the door on your past being your creation. Here's the same problem pointing forwards, and this one I can't close for you. Taking the second party out leaves a gap, and for some people what rushes into the gap is not freedom, it's total responsibility. If there's nobody to ask, then everything not working is you. Watch for that. It usually shows up in week 2 as a flat, heavy feeling that this is all on you now, and you're not up to it. If you get it, put the practice down for a week. It costs nothing to stop, and the correction is Rule 3. Author-sized, not God-sized. Third, and this is the one I'd once said to me, the Kybalion does not prove Neville was right. 2 books agreeing is not proof, it's agreement. And one of them may well have been in the same new thought water as the other, without either man knowing it. What you've actually got today is smaller than the title of this video. A mechanism that makes the practice coherent, which means it stops falling apart at the point where it always fell apart for you. And what that cashes out as, in a month, is unglamorous. You'll catch yourself addressing somebody 3 or 4 times. You'll stop mid-sentence. Once or twice you'll notice you didn't check your phone for a reply that was never going to come. That's the honest size of it, and it's the true one. So, today, the answer you gave at the start, the sender, the judge, the machine, or the blank, whichever one you found, is the shape you've been forcing this into, and it's the only thing standing between you and a method that already works. There is nobody on the other end. Not because you're alone in it, but because you're inside it. That's the author, and it's the only position in this that was ever available to you. The image was never a message. It was a room, and it's lit for exactly as long as you're standing in it. The video where I read this same principle for what reaches you, your environment, is on screen. That was this law, read outward. This one reads it inward. And in the comments, which of the 4 you found, sender, judge, machine, or blank? And the word nobody, so I know you got to the end. In this video, that's the good news. I read them.